The black SUV's engine ticked quietly in the driveway as Marcus Hayes sat motionless behind the wheel, staring at the house that had once been his home. 2 years. 2 years since he'd last seen the pale blue shutters, the rose bushes Sarah had planted along the front walk, the oak tree where they'd carved their initials during their first year of marriage. His phone buzzed on the passenger seat, another text from his lawyer. Papers finalized. You're officially divorced as of yesterday. Sorry, Marcus. He'd received the divorce papers 8 months into his deployment in Afghanistan. The manila envelope had arrived at the forward operating base with a note from Sarah's attorney, clinical and cold. Your wife requests dissolution of marriage. Please respond within 30 days. No phone call, no explanation. Just papers that shredded 14 years of marriage into legal terminology. Marcus adjusted the rearview mirror and caught sight of his reflection. The man looking back bore little resemblance to the idealistic soldier who'd left for deployment 2 years ago. His jaw was sharper, weathered by desert sun and constant vigilance. His eyes held depths that hadn't existed before, depths carved by witnessing things no amount of money could erase. Money. That was the irony that still made him shake his head. 3 days after receiving the divorce papers, his unit had been tasked with securing a compound outside Kandahar. What they'd found inside changed everything. Not weapons or terrorist cells, but something far more valuable and far more dangerous. The discovery had led to the most classified debriefing of his military career, followed by an offer that seemed too good to be true. It's the kind of offer that comes with serious strings attached and the understanding that some secrets die with you. Now he was home, officially divorced, and worth more money than he'd ever imagined possible. His phone rang. Sarah's number. Marcus stared at the screen until it went to voicemail, then immediately rang again. And again, on the 4th call, he answered. Marcus. Sarah's voice was breathless, excited. Oh my God, I've been trying to reach you for weeks. When did you get back? Yesterday? His voice sounded foreign to his own ears, controlled, measured. Military precision had become second nature. I heard about your situation, about the windfall. She paused, and he could hear her, choosing words carefully. We need to talk. There are things you don't understand about why I filed for divorce. Important things. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. What kind of things? Not over the phone? Can you meet me tonight? The old place you remember? Where we had our first date? Moretti's Italian restaurant? You remembered the checkered tablecloths? The way Sarah had laughed when he'd struggled with the pronunciation of Asalbuco? The memory felt like it belonged to someone else's life. 8 o'clock, he said, and hung up. As he drove away from the house, Marcus caught sight of movement in the upstairs window. A man's silhouette was quickly ducking out of view. His trained eye automatically cataloged details. Height approximately 6'2", broad shoulders, confident posture. Someone comfortable in the space. Someone who belonged there. The cold feeling in his stomach spread. Marcus spent the afternoon conducting reconnaissance, though he wouldn't have called it that. Old habits from military intelligence were hard to break. He told himself he was just getting reacquainted with his hometown. But his route took him past Sarah's workplace, her gym. The coffee shop she'd always favored at each location, he observed. Noted patterns. Identified potential complications. Sarah worked for Hartwell & Associates, a mid-tier accounting firm downtown. Through the lobby windows, he watched her at her desk. Auburn hair pulled back in the professional style she'd adopted. After he deployed, she looked older, more refined. The girl who used to steal his army t-shirts for sleeping had been replaced by a woman in a tailored blazer who belonged in boardrooms. She was beautiful. It hadn't changed. What had changed was the expensive handbag on her desk designer, Isley. Worth 3 months of her old salary, the diamond tennis bracelet, catching light as she gestured during a phone call. The way she carried herself with new confidence, as if she'd grown into a life he'd never been part of. Marcus made 2 stops before heading to Moretti's. First, to a storage unit on the outskirts of town where he'd stashed certain items before. Deployment, military-grade surveillance equipment, untraceable communication devices, and other tools of his former trade. Items that officially didn't exist. His second stop was to see Tommy Briggs, an old army buddy who'd left the service 3 years prior and now ran a private security firm. Jesus, Marcus. Tommy whistled as they sat in his office. You look like you've seen some serious action, something like that. Marcus leaned back in his chair. I need a favor. Name it background check. Sarah Mitchell, she's using her maiden name now. Okay, employment, financial records, associations, everything you can dig up. Tommy's expression grew serious. This about the divorce? Maybe. Probably.
Ow.
Marcus rubbed his temples. Something feels off, Tommy. She's living above her means, and there was someone in our old house today. Male. Unfamiliar. You want me to look into him too? Start with Sarah? If there's a connection, you'll find it. Tommy nodded, making notes. How deep you want me to go? Marcus met his friend's eyes. All the way down. The drive to Moretti's took him through downtown, past familiar streets that somehow felt foreign. The city had grown during his absence. New construction, updated storefronts, a general sense of prosperity that hadn't existed when he'd left. He arrived early and chose a table with clear sightlines to both entrances and the parking lot. Another. Old habit, Sarah arrived precisely at 8, and Marcus felt his breath catch. She'd always been beautiful, but tonight she was stunning. The black dress hugged her figure perfectly, and the confidence in her stride suggested someone comfortable. With being noticed, she slid into the seat across from him, and for a moment, neither spoke. You look good, she said finally. Different, but good. You look expensive. Sarah's smile faltered. That's not fair. Fair. Marcus kept his voice level. You filed for divorce while I was dodging IEDs in Afghanistan? We're past worrying about fair. That's what I need to explain. Sarah leaned forward, her green eyes intense. Marcus, I didn't have a choice. Everyone has choices. Not when someone threatens to kill your husband. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He'd been prepared for many explanations. Loneliness, falling out of love. He hadn't been prepared for this. What are you talking about? Sarah glanced around the restaurant, then pulled out her phone. She showed him a text message dated 13 months ago. Your husband has information we need. Divorce him and disappear, or he dies the moment he returns home. Marcus studied the message, his mind racing. Who sent this? I don't know. The number was untraceable, but Marcus... Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. They knew things. Personal things about your deployment, about your unit's movements. Details that only someone with high-level clearance could know. So you divorced me to protect me? I divorced you to save your life. Tears welled in her eyes, and I've regretted it every single day since. Marcus felt the restaurant spinning. Around him, everything he'd believed about his failed marriage, about Sarah's betrayal, was crumbling. The money, he said slowly. How did you know about the money? Sarah hesitated. 2 weeks ago, I got another message. Different number, but same tone. It said you'd returned from deployment wealthy, and that I should resume my position in your life? Resume your position. Their words, not mine. Sarah reached across the table, her fingers brushing his hand. Marcus, I think someone's been orchestrating this entire situation. The divorce, the threats, maybe even whatever happened during your deployment that made you rich. Marcus pulled his hand away, his mind working through possibilities. In Afghanistan, he'd uncovered something that certain people would kill to keep secret, something that had led to his current wealth through channels he wasn't supposed to question. Tell me about the man in our house, he said. Sarah's eyes widened. How did I saw him this afternoon. Who is he? His name is David Chen. Sarah struggled with the words. He's my fiancé. The betrayal hit harder than Marcus expected. Fast work. It's not what you think. David's FBI. He was assigned to protect me after the threats started. One thing led to another, and she trailed off. You fell in love with your bodyguard. I fell in love with someone who was there when my husband wasn't. Sarah's voice carried a note of defiance. Someone who didn't abandon me to chase shadows in the desert. I was serving my country. You were running away from us. From our problems, from the life we'd built. Sarah leaned back, her professional composure cracking. Do you know what it was like, Marcus? Getting that divorce papers and knowing that somewhere someone wanted you dead? Living every day wondering if you were alive or dead, and having no way to contact you because our marriage officially didn't exist. Marcus absorbed her words, feeling the weight of misunderstandings and lost time. Why are you telling me this now? Because I think the danger isn't over. I think whatever you discovered over there, whoever wanted you gone, they're still out there. And I think they want something from you. As if summoned by her words, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Welcome home, Sergeant. Hayes, we need to talk. Midnight. Warehouse District, Building 47. Come alone, or Sarah pays the price. Marcus showed her the message, and Sarah's face went pale. They're watching us, she whispered. Marcus scanned the restaurant with new eyes. Noting the man at the bar who'd been nursing the same drink since before Sarah arrived, the woman by the window who kept glancing in their direction. We need to leave now. They took Marcus's SUV, weaving through downtown traffic while he checked mirrors for surveillance. Sarah sat rigid in the passenger seat, her earlier confidence replaced by fear. Tell me about David Chen, Marcus said as they drove. He approached. Me 3 months after you deployed. Said the FBI had received intelligence about threats against military families. He offered protection, and you believed him? I wanted to believe him. Sarah's voice was small. I was scared, Marcus, lone and scared, and he was kind and professional and went out when I wasn't. Yes. Marcus processed this information, his mind cataloging inconsistencies. Did he show you credentials, of course? Badge ID, the works? Where's he stationed? What field office? Sarah hesitated. He said it was classified. Something about joint task forces and compartmentalized operations. Every alarm bell in Marcus's head was ringing. Pulled into a parking garage and cut the engine. Ira, I need you to listen carefully. David Chen isn't FBI. What? How can you possibly know that? Because I know how federal protection details work. Real agents don't move in with their subjects. They don't develop romantic relationships. And they sure as hell don't get engaged. Marcus turned to face her. Think about it. The timing of his appearance. The way he isolated you from your friends and family. The expensive gifts he's been buying you. Does any of that sound like FBI protocol? Sarah's face crumpled as understanding dawned. Oh God, what have I done? Survived, Marcus said gently. You did what you thought you had to do to survive. His phone rang. Tommy Briggs. Marcus, you need to hear this. Sarah Mitchell's financial records show large cash deposits over the past 18 months. Always just under 10,000 to avoid reporting requirements. How large? Total? About 400,000? Marcus met Sarah's eyes. Someone's been paying you? That's impossible. I would know if Sarah stopped, her hand flying to her mouth. The investments. What investments? David handles my finances. Said he was putting my money into high-yield investments. That's why I could afford the jewelry and clothes. Sarah's voice was rising. He said it was cryptocurrency, day trading, that kind of thing. Sarah, you've been laundering money? Before she could respond, Marcus's phone buzzed again. A new message. Building 47. Midnight. Sarah comes to, or both of you die. Marcus showed her the screen. We're going to that meeting? Are you insane? We're going, but not the way they expect? Marcus reached into the back seat and pulled out a small duffel bag, one of his stops from the storage unit. First, we're going to have a conversation. With your fiancés. The drive back to the house took 20 minutes. Marcus parked 3 blocks away and pulled equipment from the bag. Night vision scope, listening devices, tactical gear. What is all this? Sarah asked. Tools of the trade. Marcus clipped a small microphone to her dress. You're going to go inside and have a normal conversation with David. Ask him about the meeting tonight, about the messages. Keep him talking. What if he gets suspicious? He won't. He thinks you're an innocent victim in all this. Marcus handed her an earpiece. I'll be listening. If things go wrong, I'll intervene. Sarah took the earpiece with shaking hands. Marcus, what if you're wrong about him? Then we'll apologize and figure out who's really behind this. Marcus met her eyes. But I'm not wrong. Sarah walked too, the house alone, while Marcus circled to the backyard. Through his scope, he watched her enter. Saw David Chen emerge from the kitchen to greet her with a kiss. Chen was older than Marcus had expected. Maybe 45, with the lean build and alert posture of someone with tactical training. Not FBI, but definitely professional. Through the listening device, Marcus heard their conversation. How did it go with your ex-husband? Chen's voice carried a slight accent, Eastern European, maybe Russian. Deployment. Changed him. Sarah sounded nervous. David, he asked questions about you. About your FBI credentials? A pause. What kind of questions? He wanted to know which field office you work for. Said something about protection protocols. Marcus heard movement, then Chen's voice, closer to the microphone. Sarah, I need you to be very careful about what you say to Marcus. He's not the man you married. Military intelligence changes people, makes them paranoid and suspicious. But his questions seemed reasonable. Did he mention the meeting tonight? Sarah's sharp intake of breath was audible through the earpiece. How do you know about that? 'Cause I'm trying to protect you from it. Chen's voice turned soothing. Marcus has gotten involved with some very dangerous people. The money he came back with, it's not legitimate. These people want it back, and they'll use you to get to him. Marcus felt a cold smile spread across his face. Chen was good weaving truth with lies, using Sarah's emotions against her rational thought. What should I do? Sarah asked. Back. A bag. We're leaving town tonight, right after Marcus goes to that meeting. But what about him? If these people are dangerous, Marcus chose his path when he decided to steal from them. He's a trained soldier, Sarah. He can take care of himself. Had heard enough. He circled around to the front of the house, checking for surveillance. Then used his key to enter through the kitchen door. Chen spun toward the sound, his hand moving instinctively toward his waistband before stopping when he saw Sarah behind. Marcus. David Chen, Marcus said conversationally. Although I'm betting that's not your real name. Marcus, you're making a mistake, Chen said. I'm federal law enforcement. No, you're not. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed Chen a photograph. You're Viktor Kozlov, former Spetsnaz, currently wanted by Interpol for arms trafficking. Chen's face went blank, professional mask slipping. How did you military intelligence databases are very thorough? Stepped further into the room. Question is, who are you working for? People you don't want to cross. The same people who sent the threats to Sarah? Who wanted me divorced and isolated? Chen's hand edged toward his weapon again. You found something in Afghanistan that doesn't belong to you. My employers want it back. What exactly do they? Think I found financial records? Bank account numbers? Evidence of money laundering operations that could bring down some very powerful people? Marcus laughed. Victor, you've been played. I didn't find financial records. Then where did the money come from? That's classified. Marcus's voice turned. Cold. But I can tell you this, your employers sent you on a fool's errand. Whatever they think I have, they're wrong. Sarah moved closer to Marcus. What's he talking about? What did you find over there? Marcus kept his eyes on Chen. Something that certain people would kill to keep secret. But not money and not financial records. Chen's weapon cleared his holster in a smooth motion, but Marcus was already moving. 2 years of combat experience had honed his reflexes too. A razor's edge. He closed the distance between them before Chen could properly aim. Driving his shoulder into the man's midsection and sending them both crashing into the living room. They fought with deadly precision. Chen's Spetsnaz training, against Marcus's combat experience and raw determination. Furniture shattered around them as they grappled for control of the weapon, Sarah screamed. Pressing herself against the wall as the two men crashed through her coffee table, Marcus finally gained the upper hand. Pinning Chen to the floor with the gun pressed against the Russian's temple. Who hired you? Marcus demanded. Chen spat blood. Go to hell. Marcus pressed the barrel harder. Sarah's been through enough because of your games. Give me a name. Petrov. Dmitry Petrov. Chen's accent was thick now, pretense abandoned. But it won't matter. The operation is bigger than you think. Operation, the deployment, your unit's discovery, the money. Chen's smile was bloody but triumphant. You think you stumbled onto something by accident? Your commanding officer has been working for my people for 3 years. Marcus felt the world tilt. That's impossible. Colonel James Morrison. Check his financial records. If you can get past the shell companies and offshore accounts. Coughed, specks of blood hitting the carpet. Your entire unit was sent to that compound specifically to find what you found. The question is, do you know what you brought back? Marcus zip-tied Chen to a chair using tactical restraints from his bag, then helped Sarah to the couch. She was shaking, staring at the destruction of her living room. Is any of it real? She asked. Our relationship, the money, any of it? What we had was real, Marcus said, sitting beside her. Everything else. I'm starting to think it's all been manipulation. He pulled out his secure phone and dialed Tommy Briggs. I need everything you can find on Colonel James Morrison. Financial records, travel history, communications. Priority 1. It's going to take time, Marcus. Military records are then. Use the back channels. Call in favors. Someone's been playing us all for fools. Marcus hung up and turned to Chen, who was watching them with calculating eyes. Tell me about the meeting tonight, Marcus said. Exchange. You bring what you took from Afghanistan. They let you and Sarah live. And if I don't have what they want... Chen shrugged. Then you both die, and they tear apart your life until they find it anyway. Sarah leaned forward. What did you take, Marcus? What's worth all this? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, weighing operational security against the need for truth. Finally, he made his decision. We found a bunker outside Kandahar. But it wasn't Taliban or Al-Qaeda. It was Russian communications hub with direct links to military installations across Europe and the Middle East, real-time intelligence, troop movements, classified operations. That's why you're rich, Sarah asked. The CIA offered me a choice. Forget what I saw and take $20 million in untraceable payments over 5 years or disappear into a very deep, very dark hole. Marcus ran his hands through his hair. I took the money. Chen laughed bitterly. And you never questioned why they were so generous. Of course I questioned it. But you didn't question it enough. Chen's smile was predatory. The bunker was a honeypot, Sergeant Hayes. The Russians wanted you to find it? The intelligence was real, but carefully curated, designed to feed specific information to the CIA while making them think they'd scored a major victory? Marcus felt his stomach drop. That's impossible. Your Colonel Morrison has been feeding mission details to my people for 3 years. Unit was selected specifically because of your intelligence background. You were the perfect Patsy-decorated soldier with unquestionable loyalty and the skills to properly document what you found. Then why the elaborate charade with Sarah Insurance? If you started asking too many questions, they needed leverage? A divorced, isolated soldier is easier to control than one with family support. Chen gestured toward Sarah. The threats. The divorce. Even my relationship with her, all designed to keep you emotionally compromised and focused on survival rather than investigation. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. You used me. For 2 years, you used me. I protected you, Chen said. My orders were to eliminate you if you became a liability. Instead, I kept you safe and comfortable. Marcus stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, the suburban street looked peaceful, normal. The contrast with the truth being revealed inside felt surreal. If they have what they want, why the meeting tonight? Because something went wrong, Chen said. The intelligence. You documented it was supposed to be contained, controlled. But someone leaked it to other agencies. Now there's an investigation, and my people need the original documents you copied to prove the intelligence was fabricated. I never made copies. Chen's confident expression faltered. That's impossible. You were observed, making digital copies of everything in the bunker? I was observed following orders. I documented everything I found, just like I was supposed to, but I never made personal copies. Marcus turned back to Chen. Because I'm not a traitor. Then where are the leaked documents coming from? Marcus's phone rang before he could answer. Tommy Briggs, calling back faster than expected. Marcus, you need to sit down for this. Just tell me. Colonel Morrison is clean. Financially, operationally, everything checks out. But I found something. Else Tommy's voice was grim. Sarah Mitchell has been under federal surveillance for 18 months. Real FBI surveillance? Not whatever game your Russian friend has been playing. Marcus looked at Sarah, who had gone pale. Surveillance for what? Money laundering? Conspiracy? Potential treason? They think she's been passing classified information to foreign agents. The phone slipped from Marcus's hand. Him with wide, frightened eyes. That's not possible, she whispered. Chen began laughing, a sound that filled the room with bitter triumph. Oh, Sarah, he said. Sweet, innocent Sarah. Did you really think I fell in love with you by accident? Sarah stood slowly, her face cycling through confusion, realization, and finally, fury. You bastard, she said quietly. Every conversation we had, every pillow talk session, every time you mentioned Marcus's work or worried about his safety, was listening, recording, building a profile of American military operations through the observations of a worried wife. Marcus felt rage building in his chest. She didn't know anything classified, didn't she? Chen looked smug despite his restraints. Sarah, tell him about the phone calls. What phone calls? Marcus asked. Sarah's shoulders slumped. Sometimes. You would call when you couldn't sleep. The time difference meant it was usually during the day here. You would talk about your missions, your frustrations, the people you were working with. General conversation, nothing classified. Names, Marcus, dates, locations. You mentioned places your unit was being deployed, complained about officers you didn't trust, talked about equipment failures and supply problems. Sarah's voice was growing smaller. I thought I was being supportive. I thought listening was what a good wife did. Chen nodded approvingly. Individually, each conversation was harmless, but compiled over months. They painted a very detailed picture of American military operations in Afghanistan. Marcus sank back onto the couch. Jesus, Sarah, I didn't know. How could I know that David was recording everything? Tears were streaming down her face now. Marcus, I swear to God, I didn't know. Of course you didn't know, Chen said with false sympathy. Hey, you were a perfect asset, completely unwitting, completely sincere. The best kind of spy is one who doesn't know they're spying. Marcus's secure phone rang again. The same unknown number from the restaurant. Answer it, Chen advised. They're calling to confirm tonight's meeting. Marcus looked at the phone then. At Sarah, then at Chen. A plan was forming in his mind, dangerous. It's probably stupid, but their only chance. He answered the call. Sergeant Hayes. The voice was accented, authoritative. I trust you've had an illuminating conversation with Mr. Chen. Very illuminating. Then you understand the situation. Building 47, midnight. Bring the documents you copied from the Kandahar facility, and this unfortunate episode ends. What if I told you I never made copies? A pause. Then you would be lying. Our surveillance confirms that you spent 47 minutes alone in the communications center, with access to copying equipment. Marcus closed his eyes, thinking back to that day. 47 minutes. We'd spent most of that time trying to understand what he was looking at, overwhelmed by the scope of the intelligence treasure trove. I need guarantees about Sarah's safety, Ms. Mitchell has served her purpose. Her fate depends entirely on your cooperation. The line went dead. Marcus looked at Chen. How many people will be at that meeting, enough to ensure you don't leave? What if I told you I could give them something better than copies of fake intelligence? Chen's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? What if I could give them the person who's been leaking real intelligence to American agencies? For the first time since the fight, Chen looked uncertain. You're bluffing. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed Chen a text message, thread 1. He'd kept hidden from Sarah. The messages were from Colonel Morrison, sent over the past month. Need to discuss your Afghanistan findings? Concerns about operational security. Information? Suggests possible leak in intelligence pipeline. Your input valuable. Meeting arranged with federal contacts. They want to interview you about possible security breaches. Morrison's been trying to set up a meeting for weeks, Marcus said. He thinks someone in the intelligence community has been compromising operations. Chun's face had gone pale. That's impossible. Morrison is supposed to be working for us. No, Marcus said quietly. Morrison is working for the Americans. It's just like he's supposed to. The leak you're worried about, it's not coming from the documents I found. It's coming from inside your own operation. Sarah looked between them, confused. I don't understand. Marcus stood and began pacing again, his mind working through the implications. Think about it, Sarah. Chen said their operation has been running for 3 years, but the intelligence leak that has them worried started 18 months ago, right around the time the FBI started watching you. So what if the FBI wasn't watching you because they suspected you of passing information to the Russians? What if they were watching you because they suspected the Russians were using you to gather information? Chen struggled against his restraints. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? Marcus pulled out his secure phone and dialed a number he'd memorized but never called. Colonel Morrison, says Sergeant Hayes. I think it's time we had that meeting. Colonel Morrison arrived 90 minutes later, accompanied by 2 FBI agents and a woman Marcus recognized from intelligence briefings as CIA. Deputy Director Karen Walsh. Chen had spent the intervening time in increasingly agitated silence while Marcus and Sarah worked through the implications of 2 years of manipulation and betrayal. The marriage counseling, Sarah said suddenly. Before you deployed, Dr. Richards kept asking about your work, encouraging me to be more supportive of your career. Dr. Richards? Marcus felt pieces clicking into place. Sarah, we chose him because he was recommended by the family support group on base. God, how deep does this go? Before Marcus could answer, Colonel Morrison knocked on the front door. Morrison was a compact man in his 50s, with the bearing of someone who had spent 30 years in military service. The federal agents flanked him, professional but alert. Sergeant Hayes, Morrison said as they entered the living room. Miss Mitchell, his gaze settled on Chen. And you must be Victor Kozlov. Chen said nothing. Deputy Director Walsh stepped forward. Sergeant, we appreciate your cooperation. This operation has been 18 months in the making. Operation? Sarah asked. Morrison gestured to Chen. Mr. Kozlov here has been the subject of a joint CIA-FBI investigation since he first approached your wife. We've been tracking his network, identifying assets, building a comprehensive picture of Russian intelligence operations targeting military families. Marcus felt the final pieces falling into place. You knew they were using Sarah. We suspected, Walsh said. The pattern was 2 consistent military wives receiving attention from charming men with flexible work schedules and unexplained wealth. But we needed proof, so you used us as bait. We protected you, Morrison said firmly. Sarah was never in real danger. Agent Chen's handlers believed he was compromising her, but every piece of information he passed along was carefully controlled. Sarah stood abruptly. You mean I was feeding him fake intelligence? Modified intelligence, Walsh corrected. Real enough to maintain his credibility with his handlers, but altered enough to be useless. And the deployment to Afghanistan? Morrison and Walsh exchanged glances. That was legitimate, Sergeant. Your unit was tasked with genuine intelligence. Gathering, the bunker you found was real, but Chen said. Mr. Kozlov was told it was a honeypot to maintain operational security, Walsh interrupted. His handlers needed him to believe the intelligence was fabricated so he wouldn't question why we allowed him to continue operating. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the layers of deception. Then the money I received payment for services rendered exactly as you were told. The intelligence you gathered has been extremely valuable. Morrison's expression softened slightly. Sergeant, you and your wife have served your country in ways you'll never fully understand. The network we've mapped through this operation has led to the arrest of over 30 foreign agents operating in the United States. Chen finally spoke. You fools, you think this ends with me? The operation is bigger than one network. We know, Walsh said calmly. That's why tonight's meeting is crucial. Your handlers are expecting you to deliver either the sergeant or proof that he doesn't have what they want. Instead, they're going to get a very different kind of surprise. She turned to Marcus and Sarah. We're asking for your help one more time. The meeting tonight, we want you to attend. Absolutely not, Marcus said immediately. Hear us out. We'll have full surveillance and backup. But we need you there to make the scenario believable. If Marcus doesn't show, or if he shows alone, they'll know something's wrong. Sarah shook her head. I've been manipulated enough. Ms. Mitchell, we understand your reluctance. This is your chance to end it permanently. After tonight, the threat to both of you disappears forever. Marcus looked at Sarah, saw the exhaustion and betrayal in her eyes. What exactly are you asking us to do? Morrison pulled out a tablet and showed them a floor plan. Building 47 is an abandoned warehouse. We'll have teams positioned at every exit. You go in, make contact with the handlers, and we take them down. And if something goes wrong, then you use these. Walsh handed them each a small device. GPS trackers with emergency beacons. Press the button, and every federal agent within 5 miles converges on your location. Sarah turned to Marcus. What do you think? Marcus studied the faces around him, federal agents, asking civilians to walk into danger. A Russian spy who'd destroyed their marriage, officials who'd orchestrated 2 years of deception and service. Of national security, I think he said slowly, that we've been through hell for the past 2 years. And I think it's time to finish it. At 11:45 p.m., Marcus and Sarah sat in his SUV outside Building 47, watching shadows move behind dirty windows. The warehouse district was exactly what Marcus expected, a collection of abandoned industrial buildings, surrounded by empty lots and broken streetlights. You don't have to do this, Marcus said for the 3rd time. Yes, I do. Sarah checked the GPS tracker in her purse. I need to know it's over. Really over. Through their earpieces, they heard Colonel Morrison's voice. All teams in position. Subjects, you are clear to proceed. They walked across the cracked asphalt to a side door that stood slightly ajar. Marcus went first, his military training automatically cataloging sight lines and potential cover. The warehouse interior was a maze of stacked shipping containers and abandoned machinery. Work lights strung from the ceiling created pools of harsh illumination separated by deep shadows. Sergeant Hayes. The voice came from behind a container 20 feet away. A man stepped into the light, tall, thin, wearing an expensive suit despite the industrial setting. I am Dmitry Petrov. We spoke on the phone. Marcus and Sarah moved closer, stopping when Petrov raised a hand. That's close enough. You have brought what we discussed. I brought Sarah, Marcus said, just like you demanded. The documents. Sergeant, the copies you made of the intelligence files? I told you on the phone I never made copies. Petrov's smile was cold. Yes, you did. Because Mr. Chen observed you doing so, Chen was wrong. Mr. Chen, Petrov called out, would you care to clarify this situation? Marcus felt his blood freeze as Chen stepped out from behind another container. He was supposed to be zip-tied to a chair in Sarah's living room. Hello, Marcus. Sarah. Chen looked relaxed, confident. I'm afraid there's been a change of plans. Sarah gripped Marcus's arm. How is he here? Because Chen said the federal agents who came to your house tonight weren't quite what they seemed. Marcus reached for his GPS tracker, but Chen was already moving. The Russian crossed the distance between them in seconds, striking Marcus's hand and sending the device skittering across the concrete floor. Marcus. Sarah lunged for her own tracker, but 2 more men emerged from the shadows, surrounding them. You see, Petrov, said conversationally, we knew about the federal investigation. We've known for months. Tonight was never about retrieving documents. Tonight was about eliminating the last loose ends. Through the earpiece, Marcus heard static, then nothing. The radio equipment was provided by us, of course, Chen explained, along with the GPS trackers, the surveillance plan, even the federal agents themselves. Marcus felt the world collapsing around him. Morrison is currently bound and gagged in the trunk of a car outside the real FBI field office, Petrov said, where he will be found tomorrow morning with evidence suggesting he was the leak in your intelligence community. You're framing him. We're tying up loose ends. Colonel Morrison has been problematic. Too many questions, too much curiosity. About his subordinates' activities, Petrov gestured to Chen. Mr. Chen will report that the colonel attempted to extract intelligence from you tonight, and that you both died heroically trying to prevent him from passing secrets to foreign agents. Sarah found her voice. People will know we're missing. People will know you attended a meeting with your former commanding officer to discuss classified intelligence. When your bodies are found, it will appear that Morrison killed you both. To prevent you from exposing his treason, then committed suicide when he realized he'd been discovered. Marcus calculated distances, timing, odds. 3 armed men, unknown number of backup, Sarah to protect. Not good odds. One problem with your plan, he said. What's that? I really did never make copies of those documents. Petrov's smile faded. You're lying. I'm not. I followed orders exactly. I documented what I found and turned it over to my superiors. I never made personal copies because I'm not a traitor. Then how do you explain the intelligence leaks? Simple, Marcus said, stalling for time while he edged closer to a piece of abandoned machinery. Your operation was compromised from the beginning. Someone in your network has been feeding information to the Americans. Chen and Petrov exchanged glances. Impossible, Chen said. The network is compartmentalized. No single person has access to enough information to, unless, Marcus interrupted. That person was high enough in the organization to have oversight. Of multiple operations, he was close enough now. Marcus dove toward the machinery as the first shots rang out, pulling Sarah down with him. Concrete exploded where they'd been standing. The leak isn't in the American intelligence community. Marcus shouted over the gunfire. It's in yours. Someone in your organization has been playing both sides. More shots, closer now. Marcus pulled Sarah deeper into the maze of equipment and containers. Think about it, he called out to Petrov. How did the Americans know exactly when and where to place surveillance on Sarah? How did they know to monitor the specific communications channels your people use? The shooting stopped. The silence, Marcus heard Petrov and Chen arguing in rapid Russian. They're realizing I'm right, Marcus whispered to Sarah. Their network has been compromised from the inside. Sarah's eyes were wide with fear, but she nodded understanding. A new voice cut through the warehouse. Authoritative, commanding. Federal. Agents. Building is surrounded. Drop your weapons. That's impossible, Chen's voice carried from across the warehouse. We compromised their communications. You compromised the communications we wanted you to compromise, the voice replied. Marcus recognized it. Colonel Morrison. Sergeant Hayes. Ms. Mitchell. This is Colonel Morrison. The real Colonel Morrison. Are you injured? We're okay, Marcus. Called back. Gentlemen, Morrison's voice addressed Petrov and Chen. You have 30 seconds to surrender before we deploy tear gas. Marcus heard rapid footsteps, the sound of men trying to escape rather than fight. Let them run, Morrisons. The voice came through speakers now, amplified and echoing. Every exit is covered. 20 minutes later, Marcus and Sarah sat in the back of an ambulance while EMTs checked them for injuries. Across the warehouse parking lot, they watched Chen and Petrov being loaded into separate federal transport vehicles. Morrison approached, them looking exhausted but satisfied. How? Sarah asked. The real federal investigation has been running parallel to the fake one for 6 months, Morrison explained. We knew Chen was reporting to someone, but we needed to identify the full network. Tonight gave us that. The agents who came to the house were real FBI, but not the team Chen was expecting. We've been monitoring his communications since yesterday. Marcus shook his head. I feel like I need a scorecard to keep track of who was working for whom. It's over now, Morrison said. The network is compromised. The assets are arrested. And you too can finally get back to your lives. Sarah looked at Marcus. What lives? Our marriage is over. Officially, legally over. Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking about everything they'd been through, everything they'd lost and found. Paperwork can be fixed, he said finally. The question is whether we want to fix it. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the kitchen of a new house, one without memories of surveillance and betrayal, making coffee, while Sarah got ready for work. The attorney called yesterday, she said, coming downstairs in the business attire of her new job. The remarriage paperwork is finalized. How does it feel to be Sarah Hayes again? Different. Better. She accepted the coffee cup he offered. How does it feel to be married to someone who wasn't coerced into loving you? Marcus considered the question seriously, terrifying and wonderful. They'd spent months in therapy, individually and together, working through the trauma and manipulation they'd endured. Some days were harder than others. Trust, once broken, required constant effort to rebuild, but they were building something new, a relationship based on truth, rather than manipulation, on choice, rather than circumstance. I got a call from Tommy yesterday, Marcus said. The security consulting business is taking off. He wants to bring me on as a partner. What would that mean? It's helping other military families identify and prevent the kind of manipulation we went through? Apparently, we weren't the only ones targeted. Sarah nodded. I've been thinking about that too. The counselor at the Family Support Center suggested I might want to speak at some of their workshops. Share our story. How do you feel about that? But good scared, you know? Like maybe something positive can come from all this. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it and smiled. What? Sarah asked. Morrison, Chen, and Petrov were convicted yesterday. Life sentences. And the network. Completely dismantled. Over 40 arrests in 6 countries. Sarah leaned against the kitchen counter, sipping her coffee. Do you ever think about what would have happened if we hadn't figured it out? If we just accepted the divorce and moved on? Every day, Marcus said, but we did figure it out. We survived it, together, even when we weren't together, especially. Then, Sarah set down her coffee cup and moved closer to him. Yeah, I love you. Not because someone threatened me. Not because I was being manipulated. Not because you're rich. She touched his face gently. I love you because you came home. Because you fought for us. Because when everything was falling apart, you still believed we were worth saving. Marcus pulled her into his arms, holding her close. Outside their kitchen window, the sun was rising over a quiet suburban street where the only surveillance was a neighbor walking her dog. We are worth saving, he said. We're worth fighting for. His phone buzzed. Again, another message from Tommy about a potential client, a military family who suspected they were being targeted by foreign agents. Marcus showed Sarah the message. Want to help them? She asked. We both do this. Both survive this. Why shouldn't we both help others? Do the same? Marcus kissed his wife, his remarried, unthreatened. Freely choosing wife, and typed back to Tommy. We're in. Outside. The neighbor's dog barked at a squirrel, and somewhere in the distance, a school bus started its morning route. Normal sounds. Of a normal life, they'd fought hard to reclaim. They'd been through hell and back. Manipulated by experts, betrayed by people they trusted, torn apart by forces beyond their control. But they'd survived, and now, finally, they were home.